my most recent prep for my first pro shows, the most hardcore prep that I've ever done. Thought it might be interesting if we just went over my blood work together. Honestly, like, you don't need to be nice. If something's terrible, just let me know it's terrible.
I'm the honest guy, man.
Dr. Richard Veyna.
Okay, so I'll take 50 of Winstrol. I get some pretty damn good results of that. Okay, well, what if I take 100? Okay, maybe a little bit more. What if I take 200? You know, it's not like you're like, oh, I got twice the results from my Winstrol because I took 200 milligrams. I've seen LDLs over 3,000. It's like, man, it's way off the chart. Holy shit.
I've heard some coaches talk about bodybuilders either coming off or just cruising on like anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. Some of this reason is obviously...
Some guys are lucky, man. They'll do HCG. They'll run cycles for months. Their sperm count stays 100 million. A lot of guys don't have that. They get completely shut down. Their testosterone shuts off, or sperm shuts off. Let's say you get a whole scan, it's okay, you have a lump here, lump there, entirely benign. I'd rather do that than say, oh, actually that was an adrenal cancer and we didn't find it in time, so now it's all over your body and you're going to die in 2 years.
What do you think about my LP(a) numbers?
So you were before and you dropped down to, that's a pretty striking difference. You see people in liver failure, they're in the range. That's when you have an extensive liver damage. I mean, you're up in the...
Whoa. I'm curious, what are some of the worst markers that you've ever seen?
You know, I think...
Before starting this podcast, I just wanted to say that ideating steroids for a full show is not widely accepted because it discounts the real work, which is the backbone of this sport. And unfortunately spreads that an unsafe chemical solution is all you need for results. Both of these are antithetical to society's understanding of the sport. And while there will always be some that claim that PEDs are all you need, I would like to deliver an honest message of what is required for achieving top performance, as well as the dangers associated with this route. I received this comment from a user named Nightscarens. But just as a rock climber, the athletes undergoing this path in the sport are willing to put their life on the line for their passion. Just the danger between the two sports is different. Luckily, we do have safety nets in the sport, such as organ imaging and regular blood work. But that doesn't change the high risk one must accept in taking on this competitive lifestyle.
So it looks like it was somebody's birthday.
Yeah,
Birthday sign.
It was mine.
Is it your birthday?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no shit. Happy birthday, man. It's not...
Thank you, bro. It was actually a minute ago.
Okay.
But my girl put in a lot of work to put up decorations and all these things, and I cleared all of it out. But that sign up there is just a little bit too tall for me, considering that
nice, man.
I'm 4 foot tall, according to the internet.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, appreciate you. How you been? Oh, wait. Well, actually, before I ask, I want to let you guys know, this is my doctor, Dr. Veyna, Dr. Richard Veyna. I don't know why I said that opposite.
Yeah, Dr. Veyna, I've been taking care of you for a bit.
I actually wanted to ask, so I thought it would be a good idea, and I don't know why, because obviously this gives me a little bit of anxiety putting this out there, especially when we would expect it to be at its absolute worst, but I thought it might be a good idea for, considering that I just came out of my most recent prep for my first pro shows, and obviously the most hardcore prep that I've ever done. Got my blood work a week after the show ended, and thought it might be interesting if we just went over my blood work together. And just honestly, like, you don't need to be nice. If something's terrible, just let me know it's terrible.
I'm the honest guy, man. So it's a blessing and a curse. So
okay.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Yeah, we're happy to go through it, and because I think it brings up a lot of important points, about some of the PEDs that people are using, and people just, I think, some people might have a clue, an idea, but I think a lot of people are doing shit and just really having no clue about the potential risks of the stuff that they're doing. That's like, oh, I'm young, I'm healthy, I can handle it, whatever, but not knowing the true extent of some of the damage that can be done, especially over the long run. But yeah, so I think it's nice we can put out some of that, some of your proof of what what the blood work looks like. A week later, obviously you still had some issues going on. Not terrible, by the way. I mean, nothing was like catastrophic. But like you said, it was a week later. But what was it like mid-cycle? Halfway through your prep when you were just cranking out, doing what you're doing. Like, what did it look like then?
Right.
Like I said, this was after a week of kind of detoxing, and I'm sure things were already improving by the time you took your blood work a week later.
Wow, I didn't think it would happen that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, especially when you're young and healthy, your body can heal pretty quick. So things start to, the moment that stuff starts getting out of your body, the things start to slowly improve. But it can take weeks for it to be back to normal. It's many, many weeks. But I think even after a week, though, you're probably already kind of, if you're if the badness was here, you're starting to kind of down the downslope, a week after stopping.
I did get my blood work mid-cycle as well, and I was kind of surprised that it just wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Oh, yeah? How was it compared to the week later, the one you took the second one? I don't think I had those to review.
I think, yeah. Well, let's just go take a look at it and see what you think. But from what I remember, the markers were all pretty similar from mid-cycle to the most recent blood work, except for, of course, liver enzymes, which obviously just kept increasing.
Yeah, I think with the as the physician, when I really worry about people's liver, when the stuff, especially the oral androgens people take with that first pass metabolism through the liver, stuff's it's really toxic, and we see a couple of things from that. We see the liver enzymes, the liver gets inflamed. You get some of that AST and ALT. Those are different enzymes in the liver. And those kind of start to spill into the bloodstream. And you can see mild ones, people do, a short course of oxandrolone. Okay, maybe instead of being 40 or 50, normal range, maybe they're up to, 80, 100, maybe low hundreds. Okay. But then, but people start taking, more higher doses, several together, there's more toxic ones out there. Right. Then there can be in the several hundred range, and unfortunately, a lot of people will do, who may be more experienced users, they'll do really high doses of some of the orals, and the liver enzymes can go through the roof. It's crazy, and again, if they're young and healthy, your liver takes a hit, but if it's a short course of things, they'll eventually come back to normal. Like I said, it might take several weeks for that to occur. But I'm always worried about those LFTs, man. I'll never forget. There was this guy. I was in med school. I was doing my rotation through pathology. Those are the people that do the autopsies. So I had this kid. I was 18 or 19. He was a teenager, and he was dead. Right, doing an autopsy on him, and it looked like he was just a young, healthy kid. He was in decent shape, whatever. Nothing crazy. And so we're finding out why this guy died. He had massive liver failure. So as we did the tox screens or whatever. He was using just such high doses of oral anabolics, he just killed his liver. This is a teenage kid. He, of course, had no freaking clue what he was doing, right? Probably somebody told him just take this, and he just took more, and liver failure, dead. Like I said, he was a teenager, So, so just, people, especially when you don't know what you're doing, you get bad advice, you get into the wrong group that's going to tell you to do things that aren't, that just are dangerous. Anyway, so that was the worst of it. That's one extreme case, of course. But I worry about the LFTs, how the liver's affected, especially over the long run. You just don't want these things, people cycling and cycling and cycling and cycling and cycling and never taking a break and letting their liver rest. That's why, you don't see it much in the office. It's really rare, but when people take the, high doses of these PEDs over a long period of time, their liver is so inflamed all the time, they can even get, particular types of liver cancers, from just, years and years of abuse of those things, or they get fatty liver disease, and then their liver starts to not work as they get older, So, so liver is always, something we got to check when people are running different cycles of things, just to make sure it's not getting crazy. Right. Where it becomes in that dangerous area.
I want to know your opinion, but from what I have been told and from what I have learned from others in the industry, I've heard that most doctors tend to believe that it's really serious whenever your liver enzymes get above 200. But especially for a lot of the bodybuilding community, if your liver enzymes are say in the hundreds, it is kind of manageable.
Yeah, I think if it's on the lower end, it's one of those things where it's not something you want. You don't want to stress your liver like that.
Yeah, of course.
But honestly, when we see people in liver failure, they're in the 2,000 or 3,000 range. So that's when you have an extensive liver damage. you're up in the thousands. Get people are in trouble. So I don't think there's anything magic about a 200 number, other than it's hey, that's a what's the trajectory here? What's next? 500, 1,000? So when you start getting up that range, it's definitely abnormal. If you're kind of skipping along the top, okay, I'm 80, I'm 100. You're above the normal range, but we start getting like I said, 200, 300. Now it's okay. Well, now there's just an issue here. What is going on? I think it might be a time to raise a yellow flag if it's 200. Maybe not like hit all the panic sirens, like, oh my God, it's 200. But I think obviously no elevation is good. If you're in the, again, 100, low, that's okay. Well, that's kind of expected. But as you start going higher up, then everybody's going to be concerned because we're just worried about what's the trajectory. Is it still going to go up?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but there's nothing magical about 200.
Okay, cool. That makes sense, though. I actually, I don't know if you have heard of this coach before, but he's a very famous up-and-coming coach. And he has, he's coaching 17 Olympians right now. His name is Stefan Kienzl.
Okay.
And, I think I said that right. Kienzler. It's like German. Stefan. And basically he mentioned that he was discussing liver enzymes on a podcast as well. And then discussing that, obviously, if it's in the hundreds, he's not going to freak out and be like, hey, you need to figure out immediately how to bring it down to 50. But obviously, your liver has a lot of different functions, and that also includes conversion to IGF-1. And obviously, as a bodybuilder, if you want to have some good growth, especially in your off season, then you want to make sure that you're having at least optimal levels of IGF-1, especially if you're trying to spend money on something like GH. So trying to at least make sure that your liver enzymes, not just for being healthy, are lower, not just for the sake of obviously your longevity, but also, if you actually care about doing well in bodybuilding in the first place, then maybe it's not a great idea to just keep destroying your liver enzymes with more PEDs because it might just bite you in the butt.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think if your liver, like you said, converts the HGH into the active form, which is IGF-1, and your liver has to be able to do that. So if you're really taxing your liver and it's inflamed and you're in the hundreds, you expect all aspects of the liver to be not functioning so well. With it manufactures all kinds of proteins and detoxes the body, etc. So many functions that it has. So you don't want to kind of push the limits, but because then you start to get that point of diminished returns. Like you're trying to push things to accomplish one goal, but then then your growth hormone levels are going to sabotage, or they're going to be low, and then it's hard to again make those gains that people are looking for.
I've told this story a few times, which is totally embarrassing, but it's in my past, so I'm just being open about it. But when I first started taking PEDs for the first time, I had wanted to stay as natural as possible throughout my entire career because I didn't fully comprehend, I guess, just the expansive use in sport and bodybuilding. So I thought it would be possible to get to where I wanted without it. But after being with a coach for quite a while and doing 6 shows, and then at nationals, I would consistently get basically unranked, which is obviously so embarrassing, especially if your dream is to get your pro card and then continue on further. There was at one point where the coach that I was with was pushing some drug use, and I would always consistently say hey, I don't want to use these. I don't want to use these. I don't feel comfortable. Not only do I fucking have a massive fear of injecting in the first place, but I just don't want to take gear whatsoever. I have no clue how to do it. I don't even know. Yeah. I don't even really understand it. So I didn't want to. And then at some point he started pushing aromatase inhibitors on me to lower my estrogen and try to make me look drier, right? Especially considering a lot of coaches believe if you take even just Novadex, even if you say got gyno surgery or don't need it, but if you take Novadex, it still seems to bring a slightly drier package. So this coach started pushing that on me, and I'm like, okay, well, this isn't a steroid and it's a pill, so I'll just take this, And for me personally, it ended up being kind of like a gateway. So at one point, took AIs for maybe one national show. And then I think the second national show after that, which was the one before I got my pro card, he offered another pill. And, I don't know why I didn't ask or I didn't do research. I think I just assumed it was another aromatase inhibitor, since he was already giving me Nolvadex and Arimidex, which is kind of nuts being a natural person without, my testosterone was already crashing. So it's how much drier can I get? But, ended up taking halotestin, and that's how it all started. And because of that process of just basically taking orals for a year to compete in these 2 last national shows, I ended up in this place where never taken testosterone, so my hormones were just crashed, super depressed. And then when I went to the doctor, got it all checked out, my liver enzymes were all in the 300s.
Wow.
So they were worried. Obviously, as you know, when you go to any clinic, they want to be as proactive as possible. So they're like, oh shit, we need to get you checked out for another test and another test. And then now you need to get a biopsy. And we are in fear that you might have a hemochromatosis or fatty liver disease. So shit scared the shit out of me, but ended up getting the biopsy, and it turned out I was okay. And basically all I did was, like, you know, come off of all orals whatsoever. I had quit drinking completely at the time. And then I started taking things like SAMe in the morning and choline and inositol, and then Tudka and NAC. And I just stayed off of anything that I thought would affect my liver for as long as possible. And I believe maybe a year after, my liver enzymes dropped from 300s to like maybe 100.
Jeez, man. So it took you a long time.
And then
now,
I think it took a while.
Now, were you comfortable enough with your
maybe in the
your med
80s
team to kind of tell them what was going on and like how you kind of ended up there, or did you have to keep it kind of, you know, on the down low, kind of what had happened, and kind of kept them out of the loop?
I literally had no knowledge about the industry or anything, especially with doctors, and so I was pretty worried. But I'm pretty sure I still mentioned, like, I took some oral, like, PEDs or whatever. I didn't really know what it was. Pretty sure I just was pretty straight up about it. So they were having me tested for that for so long, and I mean, I do have to look back on my notes for sure. I just claimed that it's 100, but I feel like maybe it was more like in the 80s or something. But I think after that, honestly, I think my integration of something like glutathione seemed to help the most when it came to keeping my values in a good place. Real quick, guys. So while I was looking at the YouTube analytics, I actually saw that 85% of you guys that watch this channel are not subscribed. And I want to ask very little of you guys, but if you enjoy this podcast, if you find value in it, then please do me this one favor and subscribe to the channel, because doing so helps me get bigger and greater guests like the guests you are listening to today. Also, this channel is not sponsored, which means only the companies that I work with, which are Young LA and Huge Supplements, are the companies that can help fund this channel by you guys using the code Nyle. So code Nyle gives you a discount of 15% off of Young LA, and code Nyle also gives you a discount of 10% off of Huge Supplements. And if you decide to purchase anything from any of these companies, it will help immensely for me by using my code. And this way, I can travel to other guests and also upgrade in equipment to make this podcast bigger and better for you guys. I want to ask if there's any other, are there any other protocols or proactive health measures that you would recommend someone for their liver if they were in a place like that?
Well, I think you nailed it when you talk about glutathione. Again, just I love glutathione. It's a great antioxidant detoxification thing people can do 3 days a week by injection. Really effective for protecting your liver. So I'm a big fan of it, especially when people are running cycles. I would say it's a must-have. Like, you got to do it. You know, if you're going to do these things which have harmful effects in your body, you really want to minimize that stuff. So, it's like if you're going to do one, you should do the other. It's like if you're going to do high doses of tests, which are going to aromatize, you're going to have high estrogen levels. If your nipples are starting to get sensitive or puffy, I mean, you need, you got to do something about it. You can't just let that stuff go unchecked unless you want to end up with gyno, 6 months later, a year later. So, so there's certain things, people are going to do some of that stuff. I mean, you just got to protect yourself as best you can. You can't protect yourself from, completely. I mean, there's still, issues with, problems, complications that can arise. But, if you're smart about it, try to minimize it. So like I said, I think glutathione is a good place to start for the liver. Like, I think it's a must have. Cool.
Forgot my question. Anyways, if you're up for it, would you be down to just take a look at my blood work and let's go through it?
Oh, sure, man.
I believe I got this blood work on September 13th. I believe I got it taken.
Oh, yeah, September 13th. There you go. I think we loaded it. We'll talk about yours, but just kind of finishing up that point you talk about, the things to protect yourself, which we'll talk more about. But all all the androgens, especially the ones by mouth, are really going to affect your lipid profiles, your triglycerides, your good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. Has varying effects on those. So it's not. I mean, it's extremely common that if someone's running some PEDs, that their good cholesterol crashes, the bad cholesterol spikes, triglycerides are up, the total cholesterol numbers go completely upside down, from what we shoot for, just keep people healthy. So you can tell. Sometimes people won't admit that they're doing some kind of oral PED. But you can look at the blood work. It's like, man, your HDL is 10. Like, that's extremely low. I know you're doing something. I know So we're trying to help people. If they're going to do these things, to try and do it in the most the most healthy way possible, if that's even possible. But so you'll also see these cholesterol numbers that are just crap. People that are running different things. So I think definitely a cholesterol support medication is definitely helpful, which is the omega-3s, the fish oils. There's a red yeast rice extract that's a natural alternative that can help kind of combat some of the effects on the liver in regards to the lipid profiles.
Doesn't red yeast rice kind of act like a statin in a way?
It
so
is.
You should be taking it with CoQ10.
They mix literally it's called red yeast and rice. They have a chemical reaction, and the byproduct of that is one of the main components of a statin called Mevacor. But it's naturally occurring one. It's not a altered pharmaceutical. So people tolerate it really well, and it works great. I was on it for a while. Dropped my cholesterol by 50 points. So it really works. It's not like voodoo. I mean, it actually really works. So it's great. So cholesterol support. Red yeast rice. Again, the fish oils, omega-3s. Really to try to protect yourself as much as possible while you're doing those things.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that red yeast rice compared to citrus bergamot?
I think the red yeast rice, again, it's been around a long time, and you can find it, on Amazon. You can find it everywhere. It's usually relatively cheap, and it's really effective. So I have the most experience with using that one. That's usually my go-to for people. Okay.
Yeah. Do you happen to have any thoughts on citrus bergamot and nattokinase?
Like I said, the citrus bergamot, it's I know it's been used. It can, just like the red yeast rice, can lower the total cholesterol. Again, I think sometimes it's a matter of degree. Like, some people it works well, some people, they don't get as much of a response from it. But it's certainly, again, one of those natural remedies, that it's been around for a while. It's not new. But certainly it's gained some steam, for trying to be a natural alternative to lowering cholesterol. But I think if people are going to try something rather than going on a statin, which are always terrible and have lots of side effects, I think trying the fish oils, omega-3s. You can try that. You can try the red yeast rice, and see where it gets you. Because things that are borderline. If say your cholesterol is 250 and your diet sucks and you're not exercising, okay, well, let's get some weight off. Let's exercise and throw some of these in, and that'll get you probably majority of the way there, if not to where you're in good ranges and things look good. So yes, I'm a big fan of that approach for sure.
Cool. All right. Do you happen to have my blood work there?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Are you up to go through the numbers just from the top?
Yeah. I made that little comment about the cholesterol profiles, kind of forecasting what we're going to talk about with your blood work. Because a lot of the abnormalities you see again are the liver issues. So I'm not sure if you've shared what exactly was going on, like what things you might have been using at the time, if that's something you discuss or talk about. But yeah, we have the typical things that that we see with people that are running cycle. Were you using some oral? What were you using?
Yeah. So basically, I was using. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I'm open about it. The orals I was using was Winstrol, and then Proviron, and then right before the show, just for a little bit less than a week, we ran Halotestin. And the Halotestin was at 10 and then 20 milligrams. Majority of the time was 20. So I think, yeah. But the thing is also I did 2 shows. So instead of just having the Winstrol for the first show, then I tried to keep digging for 4 more weeks until the next show. That was the soonest show that we had available that was in the country for the division I wanted to compete in, which was men's physique at the time. So during those 4 weeks, trying to remember what exactly we did. I believe, yeah, I think honestly, since it was 4 weeks out, instead of just dropping the winstrol, I think we just went back down to the lower dose that we were at the previous 4 weeks out, and then titrated upwards as the show came around.
Gotcha.
So we didn't actually ever drop the winstrol or the proviron completely after the last show.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. So let's go through your numbers. I mean, that's important, info.
Right.
For people to know, because these aren't, because what you see in your blood work is not uncommon. I mean, this is what happens with those oral compounds,
Yeah.
So again, so you did, let's see, 1, 2.
And I'm totally cool if we just literally go from the top and just be like, oh, this marker looks fine, this marker looks terrible, etc. Right. I know I also had a lot of additions on there, such as the full like cholesterol panel and also like particle size. Those things I don't fully comprehend myself. So if you do happen to have any inputs on those, I'm sure that would always be helpful.
Yeah, like I said, you did a lot of studies on, again, the lipids, the cholesterols, right? Which is great because I think it makes a lot of great points about some of those agents, some of the orals. Like if you start at the very top of yours, they did a pretty extensive, really broke down your lipid profile, which is great. A lot of times they'll just check, total cholesterol, HDL, LDL,
right.
That's it. But you had them break yours down, which was great. And starting from the top, if you look at your LDL, now LDL is historically like it's the low density lipoproteins. They're more smaller fatty molecules, and they can kind of diffuse out, into the blood vessel wall, into the, out. So that's what, can create those atherosclerotic plaques, right? The hardening of the arteries, because, they venture out. So the LDLs, the low density ones are not your friend. There's the ones that can create, premature aging of the arteries, heart attack, strokes, etc. So normally we like to see less than 1,000. Yours was 1,300, which, it's high, borderline high, on this, on the lab core that you went to. We like to see those lower. Again, it's not astronomical, so it's not like, oh my God, but definitely above the normal, what we consider normal or, healthy. And, we'll go down through the others, too, but.
So that's probably something you would expect, like.
It's not unexpected. That's exactly what you'd see, but, when you think about it, again, we're talking about, and there's other numbers too, which we can go through, but basically all the, like the bad numbers, the bad cholesterol, the triglycerides, the different kind of particles when you break down the cholesterol molecules, all the ones that are bad are the ones that surge when you're doing, the oral anabolics, and the good ones, like your HDL, the high density lipoproteins, those take a crash, so you get this complete flip-flopping of your cholesterol profiles from, to something that's, can do some damage over the long run. But this becomes the issue because, are you gonna have a massive heart attack, because you did, because you had this kind of blood work for, 3 months? Probably not. But the danger in these things when you see the crappy cholesterol profiles, it's the long term, where it starts to add up, right? Because guys will do stuff for 3 months or 6 months, and they take a short break and they're right back on. And they start to spend more time, on cycle than off cycle. They never get a break. So they walk around with these just terrible cholesterol numbers, with the high LDLs. It's terrible. And their HDL is in the toilet. So they have zero, they don't have any protection with the good cholesterol. The triglycerides are through the roof, and they just walk around like that, month after month, year after year after year. And it's slowly just, it's like termites eating your house or something, just kind of slowly eats away at the foundation. Now, same thing, these cholesterol numbers being terrible over a long period of time, that's where you see the early heart disease, early strokes, and guys that spend a lot of years in the, in the bodybuilding community, again, just doing massive doses of stuff, but like, just long term over and over and over again. It's that cumulative damage that gets guys into trouble.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. What are I'm curious, what are some of the worst markers that you've ever seen? But I mean, obviously we could just go through that as we go through the blood work as well.
I've seen LDLs over 3,000. It's like, man, it's way off the chart. Like, holy shit, I've seen HDLs in the single digits. It's like, man, how do you get to single digits? That's insane. Like, yeah, and
are these values that you've seen with just non-bodybuilders, or
oh no,
are
this
these
is all
mostly
bodybuilders when they get that bad. I mean, people that have like shitty diets,
Nice.
they're sedentary, just unhealthy people.
Yeah.
If say a normal is 35 or above, they might hover in the low 30s, but that's easily correctable with dietary changes and throwing on some supplements.
Right.
But the ones who really crash, I mean, it's always the bodybuilders, and the stuff that they're
Gotcha. As expected.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I guess we could just go straight to my HDL and LDL since we're talking about that right now.
Yeah. So your HDL, honestly, I wasn't too concerned about it. I mean, you're hovering, just a little bit, kind of around, just a little bit below where you'd like to be, but within striking range, of a healthy number. So again, you're blessed that way that your HDL was still somewhat, again, wasn't completely crashed.
Being at 39.
Yep. So you're
gotcha.
So I think you're decent with that, which is it's nice because because it does afford you some protection. If the rest of your parameters are crap, if you have a robust, healthy HDL, that can kind of counteract that, right? That's why I always look at the ratio, right? The bad to the good cholesterol. So if you have a really strong HDL, that really helps to keep that ratio in your favor. Having a good cholesterol to bad cholesterol ratio. So we keep so having that HDL, and some people again have a very nice lives. They'll have a really crappy total cholesterol. They'll have a crappy LDL, but the HDL is 80. It's like, oh my gosh, so it just totally, rights the ship, keeps them really well protected.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah. So yours wasn't bad. I wasn't too concerned about your HDL.
Okay, that's good.
LDL was again a little high. Then you would break down the particle size. Again, your HDL size, again, could be better. It was down below where we'd like to see it. But just barely. Right. It's your striking range to the normal areas. Same thing with the LDL. I think you're at 20, and we'd like to have that over 20, 21. So again, right again, you're right at the margins there.
Okay, gotcha. Where's my actual LDL? I'm trying to look for it right now. The normal LDL value, because it says the LDL HDL ratio is 2.2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So when you look at your risk stratification with that, LabCorp is nice to put the little scale there for you, but that puts you in a good range.
I don't know why I'm having trouble finding the actual LDL right now. Normally it's just right next to HDL.
Let's see, here's your HDL ratio.
Oh, 87?
87, yeah.
Okay.
Before you had reading of 125, looks like.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that it dropped to be within the range.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were on cycle, you said mid-cycle you had some blood work. Do you remember how did
Yeah, so the previous result is the blood work I got mid-cycle. So mid-cycle, my HDL was 31, my LDL was 125, which is above range.
Okay.
And then now it's 39, and the LDL is 87, which I guess is within range.
Mid-cycle you were 31, and then with the week of coming off, you're right up to 39. So that's great strides. And like you said, 125 to 87. So things, so things are improving pretty quick for you, which is awesome.
That's crazy quick. It's I'm kind of surprised. I just didn't know it would happen that quickly.
So
it actually makes me wonder, because I've heard some coaches talk about bodybuilders either coming off or just cruising on like just TRT, for example, for anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. And I always thought, 4 weeks sounds like way too short. Like, I feel like that's kind of surprising. Like there's a lot that I've just basically said a month, right? Like, or they will come off of everything for a month, right? And part of this reason is obviously because they, what's the word? Basically resensitize themselves, or I don't know if this is the correct word, to avoid tachyphylaxis.
Yeah, it's just like anything else. Like I like to compare it to like pain medicine. Like if someone's taking a narcotic, say like a Percocet or a Norco, right? This whole opiate crisis out there, right? So people take the very first time they take a Norco 5 milligram tablet and say, I got great pain relief and everything. It feels good, but they keep taking and taking. They start to build some tolerance to it, right? You get some downgrading of the receptors for opiates, right? So then you have to take more pills, more frequent. So before you know it, people are taking 12 pills of Norco. because they need it for pain control. Your body starts to build a tolerance, right? And with testosterone, it can be the same thing because you can get some receptor down regulation. All the receptors are saturated. So the cells really start to get not immune, but they just don't respond as well. So when you kind of wipe the slate clean, kind of come off, but 4 weeks is kind of a short period of time. Honestly, sure you probably get some receptor, return to normal. But it's usually takes several months, honestly, for that to be completely out, for your cells to return to normal, and then to be like maximally responsive again to the drug, in this case, testosterone. So 4 weeks is kind of short. Honestly, if you really wanted to say, okay, I'm going to clear it out, that way when I start back on a testosterone dosage, I really can get the full punch with it. I'd say 3 months.
It's 100% what I would think as well. I haven't done a full come off period of time recently, but I would be interested to, I guess, experiment with that. Of course, if being hopeful that being on a protocol of say HCG and maybe enclomiphene together might be beneficial enough to put myself within the middle of the range for testosterone. I feel like that wouldn't be too much of an issue. It's still a much lower testosterone than the bodybuilders TRT, mm-hmm. But I feel like that would be beneficial in the long run if I decided that it might actually help my sensitivity to testosterone. Say I wanted to jump back on an off-season cycle.
Yeah, it would. It's always guys come off. They're used to those high doses of testosterone. It's super physiological doses. Mm-hmm. And then when you stop everything, I mean, it's going to plummet, and they're going to be severely testosterone deficient, and feel like absolute garbage, right? And guys can do you can do the enclomiphene HCG, but that can take a few months to get full effectiveness, right? I mean, the enclomiphene, eventually your FSH and LH go up to normal ranges, but that can take a few weeks, to get those, to get a really healthy FSH and LH. And then the testicles have to respond after that, to make the more testosterone and more sperm. So it can be a little bit of a delayed, response, taking enclomiphene HCG. So, just coming off cycle, guys want to do it to try to restart things. But during that time, you're still going to have really shitty test levels, which is why guys that, if they've had some gains, with these that their doses, and then they come off, I mean, they're going to lose a lot, right? They're going to lose a lot of their gains. When their test level suddenly drops to 50, and they're used to having it 1,500 or 2,000,
Holy shit.
And nobody wants to go through that. So that's the whole, blast and cruise, right? So guys will stay on the 200 or 300, whatever, at least, so they don't completely crash, and then try to maintain, what they've got, what they've gained. So
cool. Yeah. Have you found that HCG has helped if, say that, I guess a bodybuilder is taking HCG alongside his cycle, and then he decides to come off and try to utilize HCG and say something like enclomiphene or whatever else to bring his testosterone back to a normal range? Do you find that ever helps?
The problem with trying to run like enclomiphene or HCG together, or just one while you're doing a heavy anabolic cycle, it's like when you're in a car and you're pushing the brake all the way to the floor and the gas pedal all the way to the floor. I mean, the brake's going to win every time, right? You're not going to move anywhere if your brake's all the way down, right? Right. And that's kind of like the testicles. If you're doing massive amounts of super physiologic androgens, high levels of whatever anabolics, BEDs, your testicles are going to be shut down. So you can even the people trying to protect themselves, their fertility, by doing the enclomiphene or HCG, it's a hell of a brake pedal, to overcome, to think I'm going to protect my testicular function by staying on HCG while I'm doing, tren and 5 other things. It's like, no, you're not. It's such a high risk that you're still going to affect your fertility, and your testosterone production.
Of course.
To think that it's like spitting in the wind. I mean, some guys are lucky, man. They'll do HCG, they'll run cycles for months, whatever stuff, and their sperm count stays 100 million. Awesome, good for you, man. And their testosterone, they stop, and their testosterone's cranking away. Good for you, man. You're blessed. But a lot of guys don't have that, that luxury where it's they get completely shut down. Their testosterone shuts off, their sperm shuts off. And then you got to spend some time getting them restarted, if that's important to you. So yeah, I know guys want to try to do it. HCG works fine at testosterone, at the classic, testosterone replacement doses, 200 milligrams a week, whatever. HCG can kind of keep things running, keep your testicles from undergoing, shrinkage, atrophy, right?
Right.
But when you're doing heavy doses of anabolics, and you throw an HCG, think it's going to do something, you got to be really careful with that. That's probably not going to do as much as you think. For some guys, you're trying to protect your fertility, or maybe you want to get off at some point, and just be natural or whatever. You can be misled thinking that you're going to do it and then be fine after. You have to wait and see, but don't be careful.
Right. It definitely differs per person so greatly. I'm blessed enough to at least say openly that HCG works very well for me, so I don't really have to worry too much about that. Definitely keeps it full.
Good, man.
And the fertility high. As far as the rest of these markers, are you down to just go through the rest one by one?
So we did talk about the liver enzymes, your AST and your ALT. Yours were...
Maybe we can go back to the top, starting at... we basically already went over particle sizes, so we can talk about I guess the next thing there is CBC with the differential. So red blood cell count, hemoglobin, etc.
Yeah. Your white blood cell count was great, 4.7. Your hemoglobin hematocrit were great. The rest of your red blood cell parameters, the MCV, how much hemoglobin, what's the volume of the blood cells, etc. Those are all important to look at different kinds of anemias. Where it's iron deficiency or other kind of anemia. But for our purposes, we're in the TRT bodybuilding world. What you normally see in people that are using any kind of androgens, testosterone, whatever it might be. One of the physiologic responses to that is an increased production of red blood cells, right? So almost every guy that gets on TRT is going to have higher hemoglobin, higher hematocrit. It's just part of the physiologic process that your bone marrow spits out more red blood cells. And so honestly, I was surprised to see that yours were all normal. So that's great for you.
Okay,
man.
Cool.
Like I said, because it does create some anxiety when guys see that their hemoglobin hematocrit are really high, because they're told by their physicians that they're going to stroke out and have a heart attack, from their hemoglobin that's too high. So which is of course not true, but when they're normal ranges like yours, that's great. So yeah, so you're good with that, no worries. Your platelet count is about 400, which is great. The platelets are what cause your blood to clump, in response to a cut, whatever. It helps to stop the bleeding. When the platelet counts get too high, that can cause thrombosis or clotting of arteries or veins, right? And the reason that's kind of important is because when guys' hemoglobin gets high on TRT, that can be there's another condition where you get an abnormal red blood cell count, but you also get a high platelet count, and that's when clots can start to happen. Deep venous thrombosis, clots, heart, strokes. But the setting of high red blood cell counts, high platelet counts, that's where the danger comes. But we don't see that with TRT. It's just it's a physiologic higher red blood cell count. Anyway, so for you, your hemoglobin's good, hematocrit's good, platelet's good, like I said. So that all looked good, and I was very happy with that for you.
Awesome.
Let's see, you're looking at your kidney function. It's fine. You had a couple of, they were off the range a little bit, but again, a lot of that, sometimes people are NPO, they haven't drank, they're dehydrated, whatever. So that can create those higher BUN and creatinine numbers that you see on yours. But the important thing, if you look at that eGFR, which it's your glomerular filtration rate, that's a really, really good measure of how well the kidneys are filtering your blood. And yours is great. Yours is perfect. So your kidneys are working great. Maybe a little dehydrated when I drew your blood, but your kidneys are working great.
Yeah, I was very dehydrated, but I always feel like I'm not allowed to drink electrolytes or even lemon water in the morning. So I'm just drinking water, but I can just feel that I need some electrolytes and sodium as I'm drinking it. I feel like the water's just passing through me. At least this blood work felt like that. So do you know, what can I drink something else? Can I just take a shot of salt or something?
I don't know, man. Do you have one that you like? Do you have electrolyte supplement that you like? You take any of those?
I mean, I have a lot. I'm currently taking some element stuff right now, but I was curious about, like, is that allowed before blood work? Can I take anything else other than water, such as like salt?
Well, that's all fine. When you have normal kidney function like yours, whatever it doesn't need, you're just going to pee it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I won't mess up your blood work. If you took your normal electrolyte stuff, that you put in your water, that's all fine. It's not going to affect it.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. That's actually really cool to hear, because I always hear contradicting info on that.
Nah, you're good.
People are like, don't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you had, chronic kidney disease, like if you had some, malfunctioning in your kidneys, yeah, I mean, it would really affect it. But you got normal kidneys, so you're good.
Awesome.
Yeah, as I go down, looking at your iron studies, if I'm assuming you've never had any issues with your iron. It's you can usually tell the guys that are on testosterone or derivatives for a long period of time, and their hemoglobin hematocrits go up, and they get concerned. So they want to go donate blood. I don't know if you're one of those guys that likes to donate blood. Do you ever?
Well, I just get the phlebotomy done, because obviously as a bodybuilder, I'm not technically allowed to, donate blood. Mm-hmm. But I've only done a phlebotomy once. I've only ever needed to do it once ever. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I've never really ran crazy cycles. So this was kind of the craziest thing I've ever ran, was this prep.
Yeah, great. Well, the problem is, guys start to get those higher numbers, and they get concerned again that they're going to stroke out again, which is not the case. But the primary care doctor sees their high blood cell counts. And because there's something called polycythemia vera. It's a blood condition where, again, it's abnormal bone marrow thing where your body's pumping out way too many red blood cells and pumping out way too many platelets. And it's those platelets that clump that give people the blood vessels clotting off, the thrombosis, the strokes, whatever. So the primary care docs, God bless them, they'll see the high hemoglobins and they'll just say, oh, you got to go donate blood. Your hemoglobin's too high. So guys will, donate every 2 or 3 months. They're going to drop a pint of blood, which is fine. Okay, sure. I don't think it's necessary, but, guys are sent for it. But the problem is, you donate in blood, and then, after a while, you start to, you're giving all your iron away, right? The guys start to get iron deficiency. So then you start to see those other numbers I mentioned earlier, like your mean corpuscular hemoglobin volume, and those things your red blood cells start to get really pale because there's no iron in them. So you're treating, a high hemoglobin by donating blood, which is kind of unnecessary, and now you're trading that off for features of iron deficiency anemia.
Okay.
Like I said, so I'm not a big fan of just donating blood just because.
Right. Of course.
Guys can run their hemoglobins, 17, 18, 19, and they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
That means they're carrying much more oxygen in their blood. Good for you. We look at the Sherpas that climb, in Nepal. They live in those low oxygen environments, way up in the mountains, and their hemoglobins are high because they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Lance Armstrong, he was, using a drug called erythropoietin, right? It's a medication you take that stimulates your body to make more red blood cells. So if you have a higher blood counts, guess what? You can carry more oxygen. Guess what? It makes it, you have much more stamina and endurance when you have more oxygen carrying capacity in your blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
So just for the audience, what are all the values that you would mark down when you realize it's time to definitely get a phlebotomy done?
Honestly, there's no real cutoff. I think it's kind of controversial. Admittedly, where some docs, some clinics will do it routinely. It's like, oh yeah, this is a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, you got to get your blood drawn, or you got to donate some blood. You got a phlebotomy. Your hemoglobin's 18 or 19. Like, oh my God, you got to go today. So it's controversial. For guys that are otherwise healthy, young guys, again, I see guys 19. I've had some dip into the 20, and they're fine. They're asymptomatic. Their platelets, which I mentioned earlier, are fine. So it's something, if the patient voices a concern, if we're talking about it, and they're uncomfortable or their primary care doc is uncomfortable, okay, well, let's, best thing to do is let's drop your dose. So maybe you're not doing 200 milligrams a week of TRT. Maybe we drop you to 160 and recheck it in 3 or 4 months. Just the lower doses of the testosterone, it will kind of naturally decline over time, hopefully back into a range that, everybody's comfortable with. But I don't, again, some docs don't ever send their patients for phlebotomy. I'm probably a little bit more along that route. At least, if we do, it's like a one-time deal and we'll see how it goes. It's not like, okay, every 3 months we gotta go donate blood, because then you're just asking for more trouble. You're treating a problem that's, theoretical problem, and you're making a real problem.
Okay. What would be the next value that we would look at?
Let's see. We talked about your AST and ALT. Let's keep going down here.
Did we actually discuss my AST and ALT, like the specific numbers?
Yeah, yours was 116 and 150, which looks like they were a little higher than when you were mid-cycle. So I don't know if that's just a consequence of what you were taking, mid-cycle versus
100% definitely was. Because July 8th was when I got the last one done, according to this. And with the AST being 91 and the ALT being 125, July 8th was, I think, exactly maybe 1 month before my first show. Yeah, July, August. Yeah, I think that was exactly about 1 month before my first show. So that was probably like 4 weeks out-ish, maybe 4.5 weeks out-ish. So what I would expect is like my liver enzymes have started to creep up from being on prep for like 10 weeks or so, 11 weeks. Yeah. And then obviously the last 4 weeks of that show and then the 4 weeks before my second show is when I'm running the most orals, the highest dosages of Winstrol and Proviron, which I think at the time were just 50 milligrams straight all the way till peak week. And then that's when we tapered it up a little bit more.
Okay. So that makes sense then based on what you're taking.
Yeah. So I guess technically this 116 and 151 is from me taking about 50 milligrams of Winstrol, 50 milligrams of Proviron for 8 weeks straight. Okay. Maybe even a little bit longer. It's in my notes. I would have to pull it up. And then obviously the other compounds.
Yeah, but I would tell you, honestly, again, Stans is, Winstrol is just, it's really harsh. It's much harsher on the liver than like oxandrolone is.
Oh, I forgot about the halotestin as well. Yeah. And then.
So usually you see much greater, elevations in those liver enzymes, that ALT and the AST, when people are using the Winstrol versus some of the other orals. Like Stans is pretty toxic to the liver, in terms of scales or degrees. Winstrol is definitely a little bit harsher. So honestly, I would expect yours to have been higher, if that's what you're on. So slight elevation. That's along with the other cholesterol parameters we talked about.
I think something that really helped my liver enzymes stay lower. I think one of the things that really helped my liver enzymes just stay lower is one, obviously the fact that I just don't drink alcohol whatsoever, and then other lifestyle factors, and then supplement wise, I took I think 1,500 milligrams of TUDCA every day, and then I took NAC that's included in my my like total cycle support product, which is Defend from Huge Supplements. They like updated the supplement, so now it's got like, I didn't really use the Defend before, but now that they updated it and put a whole bunch of like proper doses for supplementation in there, it's got like at least a gram of NAC, I believe. I think those were really helpful. And then the final thing was just doing the glutathione regularly. And I think the glutathione helped quite a lot. And to be honest, I didn't realize the importance of glutathione. I mean, I knew it was important, but I think I just didn't realize just how much it was helpful until I took it for like a couple of years. And then I also had two of like the top bodybuilding coaches in the world telling me to take for a program, and also they give this to all the other bodybuilders as well, but they tell them to take 3 to 5 grams of glutathione through IV once a month, which I decided, like, because I'm getting this glutathione from Transcend, right, that since I just have it in my fridge in injectable form and it's super convenient, I would just take equal amount of the dose through injection, which is just like, I just take like a gram a week, basically. Perfect. Which is like what, how many, 200 per milliliter? So it's like 5 milliliters a week, right? So.
All right, good, man.
Yeah, and I mean, it just seemed to help so much.
Yeah, like I said, we've been talking about these things in Bloodwork. There's some things are off, but But it makes a huge difference, though. Like, I mean, you're doing the things that are kind of counteracting some of the harm that you could potentially bring on yourself, right? So you got all these things that you're taking that are really kind of dampening some of the harshness, right? Because, like I said, I would expect your liver enzymes to be higher without that long of doing the Winstrol and the halotestin, but yours are minimally elevated because you're trying to combat that, and that just kind of makes a difference. Right. I mean, obviously, none is best. But when you're getting your blood work done and and have some clue of, okay, if I'm going to do this, how am I going to best protect myself? And all these supplements that you're taking, your coaches are spot on. Like, okay, if we're going to go this route, let's try to minimize, or you can't eliminate altogether, but try to minimize a potential harm to yourself, of competing, and this is versus the guys that I'm sure you talk to 50 a day probably. That just do all kinds of shit, and they're kind of just, winging it, and they're not protecting themselves with anything. Liver protection, what's that? Anti-estrogens, or, they just have no clue, and then it just becomes very, very dangerous. Like, it's just like, come on, man, what are you doing? You just, you're putting yourself at high risks, much higher risk than you should be. There's ways to if you're going to do it, to try to protect yourself. So it's an important conversation to have. Like I said, you're getting medical care, you're seeing a doc, you're getting your blood work done to kind of see how these things are affecting you. And, if there's something that's off, okay, well, maybe I need more glutathione, maybe I need more of this or that because it's not working. Or maybe, things are so haywire, I need to back off on this one agent and maybe switch to something else because it's my liver is reacting terribly, right? So there's ways to navigate it and be more safe in the long run. I mean, it's
right.
That's why you see some of these guys, these bodybuilders are dead at 40, because they just didn't know how to do way too much stuff, not protecting themselves.
This is just a story that I've been told by people that personally knew him. I don't want to call anyone out because we all do what we do for our own reasons, but I guess I was told that Bostin Loyd, one of his friends, one of his buddies that I know, was actually telling him to get his blood work done, and I guess he was just refusing to get it done, like really shortly before he passed, which I guess I just found as a surprise because I know he liked to be an experiment, he liked to be very experimental in the field, especially with high doses. So I think sometimes it does just surprise me that there are. I guess some bodybuilders, it's easy for some of us to just tend to lean towards the position of like ignorance, because that does relieve a lot of anxiety and paranoia, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you bury your head in the sand like an ostrich, right? Just try to pretend it's not going to happen or it's not happening.
Yeah.
And part of the problem too is that, most of the guys that are, bodybuilding, I mean, they're younger, they're healthier, right? And the bodies can tolerate a lot. They can take these severe disruptions internally for the short term, right? So they blast all kinds of stuff and they get through. Oh, man, I was fine. Like, I didn't have any issues, no problems. Yeah, I'm good, right? But yeah, like you said, they're blissfully unaware of actually what things actually look like inside. And they're just. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, it's cool. Then they go bigger and harder next time. And it's like I said, it's that cumulative damage over a long period of time. No, I mean, they're not going to drop dead after a cycle or 2 cycles or 10, but it's over the years of just repetitive these insults, to your liver and your kidneys and your heart, your internal organs, that ultimately, does them in. But yeah, so ignorance is bliss for sure.
This actually brings me to a point that I was curious about. I kind of just want to know your opinion. It's a little bit unrelated, but the Prenuvo scan is something that I've always been very interested in taking, and I actually paid for it and then was about to get it done. But then I spoke with some other people in the medical field, another doctor as well, and they were saying that there's a lot of doctors that do not believe in the Prenuvo scan or don't support it. And I can just say the reason, but I'm also more curious to know what your opinion is before I mention it.
You
might be on the same page.
the place where you go and they scan your whole body.
Yeah, it's that fancy full body MRI that like also.
It's funny. I was just talking to my wife about getting one myself. Yeah. So you're asking what my opinion is on the whole body scans.
Yeah.
Man, I would tell you like I said, there's some controversy here, but I am all for it, man. I just had a lady in my office just a couple weeks ago who I was seeing for headaches or whatever, but her husband had died. He had cancer, and just it was all over by the time they found it. And she was like, I'm not going to do that. So she went and paid I think it was $3,000. I think she paid.
It's like $2,500.
What's that?
Yeah, you're right.
That's around $3,000, and because she's like, I didn't want to just like find out I had cancer, So I think if people have like a strong family history of cancers, whatever it might be, I think it's a great idea, and it's come down. The prices come down quite a bit, I mean, just a brain scan used to be $5,000. Now you can do your whole body for $2,500, $3,000. They're kind of popping up all over the United States,
Right.
We finally got one in Michigan, but yeah, I mean, I like I said, I've been talking about doing one myself. Me and my wife are talking. We're going to do it. You can even fly to Turkey now. Like Turkey has this whole thing where you fly over there, you go to the hospital, they'll do whole body scans, they'll do CAT scans, they'll do endoscopy, up from below, for colonoscopy, they'll go from above, all the blood work, and the whole package I think is like $3,000 to do this entire whole body workup, which in the United States would take you, weeks and, thousands and thousands of dollars to accomplish. It's if you can get a doctor to order it, So yeah, I'm all for the screening MRI scans, man. I mean, it might not be all that specific. Where I'm sure there's a lot of people that get normal scans. Well, that's great. I mean, it's normal, great. I don't have a colon nodule or some thyroid nodule or something that's going to catch up to me. I think peace of mind is everything. So yeah, I'm all for it, man. Now that we can direct to consumer, consumers just do it on your own, having to go to your doctor and explain why. And like, no, you don't need that. I love how the patients can be proactive and just get it done. Mm-hmm. Love it.
If you feel like any of the medications that we spoke about today may benefit you, such as BPC 157, GH secretagogues such as tesamorelin, IGF-1, oxandrolone trochet, semaglutide, then you can obtain these from Transcend HRT, and the link for that will be in the bio. If you feel like you're experiencing symptoms of low testosterone, such as depression, anxiety, lack of motivation, as well as lack of sex drive, then you can get this checked out as well by getting your blood work done at Transcend, and they will provide you expert medical analysis. Transcend HRT has worked with many professional bodybuilders and pro athletes, such as Thor Bjornsson, Phil Heath, and Jeremy Buendia. And if you feel like this podcast has any relevancy to you, I do believe that this clinic will provide of great benefit to you as well. Thank you for letting me do that. Oh my God.
I thought you were doing the pee-pee dance there for a second.
Oh, I was. It's the best feeling after podcast, not during the podcast, honestly. It's the most relieving feeling. But yeah, so the reason I was asking is in like what the doctor said is apparently it's so controversial because a lot of doctors believe that it just pops up a lot of these markers that a lot of the times it just kind of like I don't know, I can't talk today, I'm sorry, but it just overdiagnoses people and I guess causes sometimes some extra paranoia and a lot of additional testing that may just continuously increase these unnecessary expenses for clients because it might like scare you and think, oh, you have cancer here, when really it's nothing nearly as serious. So I think that's just basically where they come from. I don't know. It's a little controversial.
Yeah, I mean, my take is, okay, yeah, let's say you get a whole scan and it's okay, you have a lump here, lump there, and which are entirely benign. But now, okay, well, gosh, I got this little lump on my adrenal gland. Okay, well, now I'm going to get another CT, maybe a biopsy. Oh, yeah, it was a benign thing. Okay, well, cool. It's benign. Awesome. Like, yeah, I had, had to pay some money out of my pocket. Insurance had to pay something. But, hey, I'm healthy. It's great. I don't have cancer. Amazing.
Yeah.
Right. I'd rather do that than say, oh, actually, that was an adrenal cancer, and we didn't find it in time, so now it's all over your body, and you're going to die in 2 years, I don't like that. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like having a handgun. Like, you'd rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. You know what I mean? I I would much rather have a scan that shows, oh yeah, everything looks great, but there's this one lump. Go check it out. Oh, it's normal. Okay, great. Now I know my complete body I'm healthy, head to toe. Nothing lurking in there that I wish I had found earlier. So I understand the argument that it leads to extra testing and extra money spent, and the patients are anxious because they did find something that So I get it, but at the end of the day, though, I think the ability to pick up something that can be, again, cancerous or life-changing at an earlier stage, man, I'm all for it. I think it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you as well. I think I'm just paranoid about the issues in the long term, so I'm always happy to get things tested, honestly.
Well, plus, insurance companies aren't going to pay for it, right? They're reactive, right? They're not proactive, so they're never going to pay the $2,000 or $3,000 for us consumers to get MRI scans just to try to be okay. So it's going to be a cash out of pocket. So
also, I pulled up my notes on more of the cycle details that I was on, and I don't know why I forgot this. I totally knew this, but the Winstrol cycle, the Winstrol Proviron, was 6 weeks out of show, which means I took it for a total of 10 weeks, both of those. And then as the show approached, we tapered up to 75, and then we tapered up to 100, which I'm going to be real. I think either I'm a little bit more responsive than I thought, or maybe my coach was just used to giving these larger doses, but I did feel like the doses were actually higher than I needed. Like I could tell that I was, I had to compensate to dry out because I was on more PEDs than my body is used to. So I was holding more water. Obviously I look full as hell. Muscle bellies were really round and full and crap, but the water, it's not like you only gain that in the intracellular layer ever, right? Like there is still some kind of homeostasis that occurs. So there's still a little bit of it definitely blurs lines, blurs like striations and separation a little bit if you're taking too much. So I think that was a little high, but in terms of, this might be a little bit harder. I'm not sure if you quite have experience or info with this, because I'm not sure how open bodybuilders are with you on what they've done. But do you ever find that upping the dose to something as high as 100 or even higher for a short period of time versus running the low dose for a long period of time? Obviously, this is not very specific, but do you find either one of those tends to affect one's blood work more?
I think it's definitely dose dependent. So the higher the dose that you're putting in, the more likely you're going to have, those, abnormalities in your blood are going to be more severe. So definitely a lower dose over a longer period of time will create less havoc, less stress in your body. It's definitely dose dependent. So the higher dose, the more stress it's going to be on your liver. Like I said, hundreds. It's a different world. 100 is a lot. So yeah, there's definitely, a concern. 50 versus 100. It's like, it's going to be double toxic.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
But the other thing too, it always begs the question. Okay, Winstrol can only do so much, right? Steroids can only do so much. So it's like taking, I have a headache. I'm going to take 800 milligrams of Motrin. Okay, well, if I take 3,000 milligrams of Motrin, is that going to make my headache any better than the 800? No, it kind of plateaus on its effect, right?
Yes, exactly.
So
exactly.
Okay, so I take 50 of Winstrol. I get some pretty damn good results of that. Okay, what if I take 100? Okay, maybe a little bit more. What if I take 200? It's not like you're like, I got twice the results from my Winstrol because I took 200 milligrams. No, you didn't. You're just trying to kill off your liver. You know what I mean? So just because you use higher doses, and it's not like you're going to get it's not a stepwise I get this much and then this much and this much. The effect is going to plateau off, and now all you're doing is creating side effects and problems.
I feel like the side effects are more linear than the benefits. But
absolutely, well said.
This day and age, it's very easy for a lot of clients and bodybuilders to want to jump to increasing the dose before they jump to increasing food and training or something similar.
You got it, man.
Cool, awesome. So maybe let's just finish up going through my blood work. I think those were most of the main values. I think after that, we talked about cholesterol, and then maybe we can just go through all the rest of the values just so we have this full review of my entire
for sure
blood work panel.
Yeah, this was a week after you'd come off cycle. Your test levels are still over 1,500, and your free test was over 50. So you're still really maxed out on that. You still had a lot of tests running around your system. Your PSA, which of course is a screen for prostate cancer, yours was normal, perfect. We have your hemoglobin A1C, which is kind of like a 3-month kind of mark of where your blood sugars have been. Yours was, where'd you go? 5.4, which is great. So it's normal range, no pre-diabetes. It's great. Looking at your DHEA, your 437, which is great. Normally, 4 to 500 is kind of where we shoot for that. DHEA is a great precursor hormone. It's great for immunity and energy, and so we like to have normal or healthy DHEA levels, and yours is a great range. Cortisol level was 15. I don't know when your blood work was done, time of day. Let me see. You probably had it up.
It was in the morning.
Okay.
Fast in the morning.
Okay. So you were 15.
Could have been like 10 a.m. honestly.
With cortisol, if we're really going to worry about your cortisol, we'll do it's called a 4-point cortisol test. We'll check it at different parts of the day because you do have like a natural rhythm of cortisol, highest in the morning. So we just have one snapshot in time for yours, but that's a good. It's the fact that it was kind of mid range, high range in the morning. That's great. I do enjoy taking a KSM 66 before bed and cycling that, maybe like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off or something like that. Do you have any opinions on that? I like adaptogens, like the ginkgo biloba, the ginsengs, red ginseng, there's holy basil. There's several different adaptogens, right, that help support adrenal function and the way your body handles stress and cortisol. So I think they can be very helpful. I'm a fan of some of those adaptogens for adrenal support, for cortisol support. Okay. I should look more into that because I'm really trying to get on top of being in my rest and digest state. I'm kind of always in this, I'm always working. And I even have this Aura ring that tells me I'm literally always stressed and I'm never resting, which is not what you want to do in the off season as a bodybuilder. It's kind of the opposite. So still trying to work on that right now, but that's good to know. Let's see. Your prolactin levels were fine. No worry about a pituitary tumor there. Looks good. Let's see. Estradiol, your estrogen levels were good, 16.5. Mid-cycle looks like you were 70. So obviously high levels of testosterone, of course, aromatized to estrogen. So that's why you were high at 70. I also got this done before I realized that I'm pretty sure my coach had me taking maybe it was Aromacin every other day, and I think I wasn't taking that for some reason. Okay. I think I took it really immediately after the blood work, and I realized oh crap, no wonder I'm very watery right now. So I'm sure it probably lowered it to somewhere more around 30 to 40 range. At least that's what it felt like. But you don't get high estrogen symptoms, you don't get bloated, puffy. I do. I was bloated and puffy. That's how I realized. Oh, my bad. I didn't realize he added it at that point. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things. Estrogen levels are funny. It's one of those things that's highly variable amongst guys, taking testosterone. Yeah. Where you have a guy that, has a level of 40 or 50 and he's already getting puffy nipples, right? Then you have guys that'll have 100, 120, and they're like, no, I'm fine. They're not retaining water. They have no nipple sensitivity, no sexual dysfunction. So it's highly variable, unfortunately with estrogen levels. It is what it is. It's one of those things. If you're super sensitive to higher estrogen levels, then you got to drop dosages or add in an AI or at least add in a serum like tamoxifen. At least keep it from interacting on your breast tissue. For guys. So yeah, sounds like you're one of those guys that's sensitive. So you got to stay on top of it, huh? I'm still unsure. I think I do inject every day, so it does help a lot. But I don't know. Estrogen's the one thing that's always for me been kind of I only know what dose of Test and Primo that seems to work for me, the ratio. But aside from that, if I'm doing something that I'm not used to, or for example, this last cycle that had a bunch of other compounds, I've never done anything like this structure before. I honestly don't really ever know where my estrogen will land. So that's why I like getting the blood work done, because I'm just dude, it's just kind of everywhere sometimes. Estrogen, I just try to listen to the symptoms, but I'd rather know what the actual number is. Yeah, like I said, you're checking, so you know what's happening. Of course, you see guys out there with gyno, right? It happens, and why does it happen? Because their estrogen levels were way too high for way too long, and they didn't do anything about it. Again,
Or
the whole,
prolactin.
bury your head in the sand, ostrich analogy again, it's,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't just get gyno like, oh my God, I started TRT and I got gyno, or I was doing a cycle and got gyno week 1. No, it takes a long period of time, like, weeks, months of having really high estrogen levels in sensitive individuals, and doing nothing about it, and then after, 6 months, a year, okay, now you got permanent gyno. Now you need surgery to remove that glandular tissue that developed because,
Mm-hmm.
you were being a knucklehead and didn't, protect yourself.
So next value, IGF-1. I have a question about this. So it says 175 in my previous result and then 215 in my new result. I was taking 2 IUs of GH throughout the whole prep. So I guess the thing about the IGF-1 is I'm wondering what your thoughts are on my IGF-1 values on 2 IUs. I don't feel like my IGF-1 values were very optimal on 2 IUs. And the thing that I understand is that, the IGF-1 levels are also highly related to your estrogen level. So you never want your estrogen to be crashed because then obviously that's going to lower your IGF-1 levels. But I had 176 when my estrogen was 70, and then I had 215 when my estrogen was 16.5. So I'm sure there were other variables there. Not really sure what they could be.
I don't know.
Just curious what your thoughts are in general.
Yeah, and also there is some daily fluctuation, like with all your hormone levels, right? Testosterone can vary by a couple hundred points, during the day. It's usually highest in the morning, which is why we like to check in the morning. But guys, so all the hormones will fluctuate throughout the day. So if you had it done
to be expected,
morning, noon, and night, you'd have 3 different levels, some higher, lower. So it's not like a constant number all day long. But yeah, I agree with you. Typically if you're taking a couple units of HGH, yeah, those will get in the 300 range. For a lot of people. So again, yours, I don't know if you always think, okay, was it true HGH? Is it something else? How pure is the HGH? Where do people get it? Obviously it's prescription strength, an actual pharmaceutical made, and, then it's good, legit.
I have used both, and I was able to get pharmaceutical HGH, and it seems to be a consistent thing that my IGF-1 levels are never really that great. So it's just something that I wish I could figure out why.
Now, have you ever had
it's just my genetics.
Did you have a baseline test before you ever did anything? Like, maybe you're a guy who maybe hovered around 90 or 100, like you're kind of a bottom of the range, so that when you get a 200 number, that's actually good. Oh, I doubled my number.
Yeah, I think I believe that before I ever took any HGH or growth hormone secretagogues, I think my IGF-1 levels were always in the bottom of the reference range, like at the low 100s. Mm-hmm. So, I guess that just means that's just my genetics where my numbers lie.
Yeah, again, it sounds like it's better on the 2 units than where you had been.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's where guys got to be cautious, with the HGH. 1 unit, 2 unit. I think in the endocrinology world for people with adult onset, like true human growth hormone deficiency, they'll give them a unit a day to start. 2 units if they're aggressive. You know what I mean? And that usually brings you back into a physiologic range of your IGF-1 levels. But then you get, the problem is, guys use just insane amounts, right? It's not uncommon. Hear people doing 6, 8, 10 units. I don't know what the highest numbers you've heard for daily HGH injections.
There's been some crazy people out there that have taken a vial of Serostim a day, but most bodybuilders I know, but most competitive I don't know, but most of the top level pros, from what I've heard, will range from, and I know there's going to be controversy about this because some people just believe everyone's blasting as much as possible. I like to believe in the middle, but I don't like to be a cynic. And from what I've heard, if I believe it to be true, top level pros tend to go anywhere from 6 to 9 IUs. There never seems to be too much, it's just like you said, like there's a plateau, there's one guy who had a whole host of experiments that he's done on himself. Dr. Todd Lee, talked about this as well, that he tried of wide range of various doses of IUs of HGH from 2 all the way up to like maybe 18 and even above. He realized like, I think it was around maybe 8 or 9 or something. And then getting his estrogen to the best range where he found his IGF-1 levels seemed to top off the most, which for him happened to be 100, an E2 of 100. He found that his highest IGF-1 levels were in the 400s, but they would never go any higher. No matter how much higher he went on his HGH, if he went 10 IUs, 11 IUs, 12 IUs, 18 IUs, 20 IUs, it would still top off at 450. Now, he also said that this is the IGF-1 in your liver, so we don't know, none of us know in this world whether or not, you know, the higher HGH intake will correlate to higher, you know, total systemic IGF-1 levels. We just have the liver values to go off of. So maybe that's the reason why some bodybuilders are like, oh, I'm going to take 18 IUs because we don't know about those IGF-1 levels. Maybe it'll still benefit me. But as far as like, you know, if you're going off liver values, like there doesn't seem to be much point in going above, say, for example, 8, 9 IUs, I don't know, depending on who you are.
Yeah. You know, and again, Again, it's one of those things, again, like we said before, it's short term. Yeah, okay, you know, maybe. But, you know, when you look at, you know, the long-term consequences of high doses of HGH, right? Like what happens? Well, you start to get, you know, insulin resistance, right? Your glucose starts to go up. You know, you get diabetes, right? Very common. People using high doses of growth hormone for a long period of time. You also start to get, you know, organic or organ like enlargement. So you start to get, you know, hypertrophy of your heart. Right, you start to get increased, you know, protuberance of your belly. Right, so you look at some of those old classic bodybuilders, man. They have a 6-pack, but their belly's like sticking out like a big beer gut. But it's a 6-pack, you know, because they've had such, you know, enlargement of organs over time. You know, and like I said, then their heart gets big. You know, their heart muscle grows too, right, and that leads to congestive heart failure. So that's why, again, you die an early death from, you know, enlargement of your heart. You die of heart failure because of the really high doses of HGH for a lot of years. So where's that cutoff? You know, 2 units, like very safe. You know, you start getting 3, 4 units. Okay, you know, you're probably getting out of range with that. You know, and again, you get those higher levels. Okay, well, yeah, now your growth hormones are really high. You know, it's helping do whatever your goals for sure. But again, but I want consequence. You know, for the long run, and again, and people are, you know, they're competing for years, so it's just, you know, year after year after year after year, you know, that eventually, you know, catches up. So, you know, if we can keep people in the top third of the range, you know, it's kind of typically is, you know, we can keep you at 200 to 300 range. You know, if you spill over a little bit over the top, that's okay. But you know, when you start having these levels chronically with 3 and 4 and 500, it's crazy. Because we know that, you know, those higher growth hormone levels, you know, there's reports, you know, there's some literature suggests that it can predispose you for developing different kind of cancers, right? Blood cancers. So do you really want to push it that much? You know, like I said, is there some other adjustments you can make, you know, and not do those really high levels, you know, for an indefinite period of time.
This Olympian bodybuilder that I had a podcast with, his last name is Durrah, but he basically explained on the podcast that at one point he tried 10 IUs for a competition for Olympia, I think it was, and he noticed his waist grow bigger, and he also got his heart checked after the 10 IUs, and they said that basically according to the echo, his heart was enlarged to a very dangerous size. So I think he dropped back down to maybe 4 IUs from 10 IUs. I don't remember how much time passed. It wasn't a very long amount of time. I feel like it was just a couple months maybe. He got it rechecked, and his heart had dropped back down to a okay range or an okay size. So just something I found interesting in terms of actual numbers for this guy.
Yeah, good for him, you know, that he got it checked out and made some adjustments.
All right, so I guess the last values that we have on here are some values that I think are probably some of the most important values, and also the values that I am the most worried to expose of myself.
All right.
And that's all of these values, including lipo, LP little a, you know, ApoB. More Plates, More Dates loves to talk about ApoB. And then the rest of these are just included. I don't think they're quite as important, but if you're up to going through my Bloodwork numbers.
Sure. Do we talk about their sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG?
I don't think we did.
Okay. Yeah, your SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. I think most people have, a lot of people have heard of it, but for those who haven't, it does just what it says. It's a protein floating around your blood, and all your sex hormones bind to it. So testosterone, estrogen, progesterone in women. It's about half of your testosterone, for men, is bound to this SHBG. The rest is bound to other proteins in the blood, like albumin. So it gobbles up all your sex hormones, and the part that's not bound to it, that's free floating, can go into whatever tissue, is the free testosterone, right? So there's this inverse correlation. So if you have a really high SHBG, that means all your testosterone is bound to it. So that's how you get guys that have their total testosterone is 1,000. It's like, oh, it looks great. I have 1,000 testosterone level, but their free testosterone is like 6. So they're technically testosterone deficient with a total testosterone of 1,000. And some people just have a naturally high SHBG. It's made by the liver, and the isomer that they make genetically is more resistant to degradation by the liver. So the liver makes it and then just hangs around, just doesn't get broken down. So they have this higher, SHBG like all the time. And it's just unfortunate for those individuals. There's medications like boron that can help to increase the SHBG, like maybe 5 milligrams a day or so, can help to bring down that SHBG. And then the opposite is true when you're using oral antibiotics. We talked about all the effects that can have on your liver earlier, some of the bad things that can happen. But with the oral androgens, it usually will suppress the manufacturing relief of SHBG. So it's not uncommon people will see orals and they'll have a low SHBG, which is kind of nice because then it can free more testosterone, for the same dosage.
Right.
So.
I'm sure the Winstrol had a big effect on this being low.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. That's how it is. We'll see those low SHBG numbers, and they'll clue us off. Like, oh yeah, they're taking something oral. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yours was low. Yours was 7. 7.5.
Which I'm assuming is to be expected.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And as you stay off of things, it'll drift back up to normal.
Is there anything particularly unhealthy about it being in a low range?
Yeah, it's really not. Because if people aren't adding stuff to their body, it equilibrates. I mean, so if you're, like I said, for the guy that has a testosterone of 1,000, because SHBG is so high, well, again, his free testosterone is low, so the brain is reading that as like, I need more testosterone. So it's producing more FSH and LH to drive up testosterone production. So your testosterone production goes up here, but you're still barely tweaking by on your free testosterone. So it's your body's trying to do, still what it's trying to do, trying to help itself by making more testosterone to accommodate or to adapt to that high SHBG.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then LP(a). Can we discuss my values here? So I had Stefan Kienzl was discussing how LP(a) is kind of an important value to look at, because if it's very, very high, and that's something that maybe potentially is related to your genetics, then normally you actually want to work harder at getting your LDL even lower than the average person.
Yeah, it's true. When you look at the studies using predictors of heart disease and cardiac events, whatever, that can be like a direct predictor all by itself. Outside of just a straight up cholesterol level or triglyceride, that there's a strong association just with that, for ultimate development of heart disease or strokes. But again, it's one of those things where you think, you go to your primary care doc and they would do this complete panel, but it's more the exception than the rule. With testing some of these, or looking for some of these more nuanced blood work, like a lot of times docs will do, cholesterol, HDL, LDL, triglycerides, that's pretty much the extent of it. We'll be able to break it down, like we've done with your blood work, and look at these more specific parameters that give you a clear indication of where you're truly at. Like it's not all about the one number. So it's like, okay, let's break that down and to see if there's other numbers that might be more predictive of me having a problem later on, and how can I work to get that better, to prevent, problems down the road, it's really good to be, again, proactive, like look into these things now, and make some adjustments to whether, it's, diet, lifestyle, whatever it might be, than having it sit there percolate under the, behind the scenes, not even knowing. It's like, oh, well, my cholesterol was always 180. It was always good. Yet I had a heart attack at, 45, because of these other numbers that were never, evaluated. I had no idea what they were. And I didn't, so I had no idea that I could, fix it, make it better. And now I ended up with a heart attack. So, yeah, I think there's really something to it. Important.
What do you think about my LP(a) numbers from now and on prep, or from a week after show and on prep?
So you were 111 before, and then you dropped down to 12.6. Well, that's a pretty striking difference, huh?
Yeah, it's a pretty striking difference.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Alert to like, oh, it looks great.
Yeah, I'm really confused, to be honest.
Confused about what?
This is why it dropped down so much.
Yeah, that's a pretty good change that you want, right? You'd rather have it go from really high to really low.
Do you think that blood pressure medications could affect LP(a)? Do they have any correlation whatsoever?
I don't think there's any strong correlation there, no.
No? Okay.
That's a separate issue.
That's the only thing I can think of, aside from the fact that I was a week off of prep, was I increased my telmisartan dose from 20 to 40. And my blood pressure, like, for example, the one I got, like I think last day of prep and like afterwards was like 100 or 110 over, I don't know, like 60 or something. So I was within range.
Nice.
So 40 is good for me. But yeah, I was just curious because that's the only thing I can think of as to why I don't know, it's the only variable I can think of that changed aside from coming off of prep.
I mean, I'd be very pleased with that number.
Okay, yeah. Cool. All right. Okay, we don't have to talk about it anymore then. Okay, what about the ApoB number? More plates, more dates is very serious about this number. And I know that Peter Attia is too. And I know that mine's definitely higher than they would like.
So you had gone from 93 down to 85, looks like. All right. Yeah, I mean, again, you were kind of spilling over a little bit in mid-cycle back in July when you had the 93.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got down to 85, looks like, with that Apolipoprotein B, ApoB.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, I think it just kind of fits with everything else that you've seen on your triglycerides or your cholesterol profiles. That again, especially the oral stuff, is just it's very harsh on your lipid profiles, on the fats that are in your blood. So as you saw, we've gone through each of them. I mean, yours really got turned upside down, right? Where the bad cholesterols and stuff went up, and your good cholesterol, your protective ones, went down. And then as you got off, they already started to turn around and get, more, normal, more protective, less bad for you as you came off. So yeah, so the ApoB is kind of the same thing. Like I said, yours wasn't as dramatic as a fluctuation as your Apo(a), but still moving in the right direction, once you came off cycle.
Well, do you have any particular opinions on it being where it is right now in this area around 80?
Honestly, I think 85 a week after coming off cycle, I think I wouldn't be too upset about it. I think could it be lower? Sure. And I bet you as you kind of go in the off season and you're getting off the harsher things, that I bet you it'll be even better. I bet you if you check it a month from now, it'll be even better than that. Cool.
Awesome. All right, that's good to know. Well, it seems everything else, all the other blood markers are within range, so I guess that's the entire Bloodwork panel. So thanks for going over that with me. Looking at my blood work from now versus my blood work from months ago, years ago, honestly, I mean, I wish we had time for me to actually show all the pages up here on the screen. I don't know if I can edit it in or not, but my blood work has significantly improved, actually. over the course of the years, even though I'm taking more stuff now. But I think I've just learned a lot over the course of the last few years in bodybuilding and have finally implemented a lot of these supplementations. And it's crazy because normally you don't think supplements are really that important, but it seems to me, at least in the bodybuilding field and from my personal experience, that when it comes to proactive health supplements or harm reduction supplements for, like guys that are on gear or something, they seem to be the most important and actually affect the blood work a lot and our health a lot in a good way, which is cool. So, I mean, there's other things that I've done, but I've always been pretty good about my diet. But I've been taking more fish oils in the last year and a half, and like I used to just take the normal dose, but then I started taking, I'd say at least over 3 grams. I try to get like 1 to 2 grams of EPAs now. I heard Rhonda Patrick does that. So I just started trying to do that as well. And obviously that gets me the rest of the good stuff. And I think that's really helped my cholesterol levels a lot. And I also implemented ezetimibe and then the telmisartan I told you about. And that has helped to a significant degree as well as like the TUDCA, the NAC. The glutathione is probably, I think, the biggest factor, I felt like. Ever since I implemented glutathione, I haven't gotten sick, which is kind of shocking to me. Like it's been like, I don't know how long it's been. Has it been 3 years or 4 years? But maybe it's been 3. It's definitely been like the beginning of COVID, but I just haven't gotten sick at all, which is, I don't know. I just find that shocking because I'm a bodybuilder. So thinking that I'm taking these PEDs, I feel like I should be getting sick here or there, but I haven't. So, I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah, good for you, man.
And then I take BPC and TP500, and that has helped a lot with certain like soft tissue injuries for me. So I think it helped my shoulder impingement, or at least hip flexor issues. I'm not exactly sure where these issues resided, but I just used it and it just seemed to help a lot. And then I also had this prepatellar bursitis that occurred right before my last show, and I've been using BPC and TB for that, and that has been improving the inflammation a lot and speeding up the healing recovery pretty significantly.
That's great, man. Yeah, very popular peptides. They work great.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other medications, HRT medications, peptides, anything that you would recommend for, say, like any bodybuilders trying to keep on top of their health?
We just talked about HGH. It's great. People call it the gold standard, whatever, been around for decades, right? But some of the peptides that are available nowadays, I think, are just much safer, better, certainly more affordable options. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of HGH is to boost your IGF-1 levels, right? To do all the good work that it's going to do is through IGF-1. So if there's other ways to get that IGF level up other than using HGH, which will be, less, risky. So I'm a big fan of it, the growth hormone secretagogues, like you had mentioned earlier. I like of course, they run through the iteration of, the old GHRP 2s and 6, and then it was some Morlin, right. And it was Aquamorlin, CJC 1295.
I did enjoy testosterone from Transcend when I was on that, the testosterone ipamorelin compound. Yep. That was nice as well before I started taking HGH.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of
I feel like it did help my belly fat stay low.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the testosterone. I think it does great wonders. Not only for body composition, for the other, health reasons that we, that we prescribe it. And if you look at the FDA approval studies for it, it almost tripled IGF-1 levels in the patients. So it works really well. So you can get, I would tell you equivalent, or nearly equivalent results with the testosterone by having those IGF levels that can boost to 300 or 400. As people get with HGH, but without the long-term consequences of HGH, with the insulin resistance and the subsequent onset of diabetes, you just don't see it with the testosterone. So it's almost like a safer alternative to doing HGH. So I'm a big fan of that. The BPC, and the KPV mixed as a capsule or the BPC injections, great for soft tissue inflammation and for anti-inflammatory repair, promoting tissue repair and collagen synthesis. Two great compounds. Like I said, the thymus and beta.
Do you believe those should be cycled?
I like doing. Usually people are doing a response to an injury, right? Something is inflamed, something's hurting, and whether it's be a ligament, joint, tendon, whatever. So I think they work good, better in the acute phase. Do it 6 weeks. Get help. Promote a faster healing of the issue. and then come off of it. So I don't think you need to stay on it, month after month after month after month.
Right. I do think as a bodybuilder, I didn't think that these would be as important. I'd be like, oh, bodybuilders can even if you have an injury, you can work around the injury and you'll be fine. But only recently, after talking to many other bodybuilders and realizing the woo-woo talk of how stress is psychologically, mentally, physically really impairing on our body's recovery processes, that even like an injury can really set us back, not just because of our ability to work, but honestly just because of what it takes and the energy it takes for our body to recover fully from everything that's going on. So especially I saw this at my last show too. My body was just inflamed the entire time trying to deal with this injury. And then obviously I was also taking ibuprofen during it, which was causing me some water retention, and I'm sure it wasn't doing well with my body since I'm already on all these oral PEDs, and then I'm smashing the max doses of ibuprofen to try to not have pain so I can walk on this knee while I'm going on stage. So it just caused a whole host of issues that even though I was leaner than my first show, I looked way worse because I was a lot softer and stressed out than my first show. So body can feel everything. Anyways, sorry for my tangent, but I think that was awesome, man. Thank you for all the help there. I guess just as a closure, is there any last advice that you have for the audience, or any last medications, peptides that you enjoy or you like?
I would say I think the most important thing is I love the podcast. I love what you're doing. I think
thank you, bro.
The more good information out there, the better, the safer, for the audience, but I think it's important to highlight, there's ways to do it, and if you're going to pick the path like you're doing with the extra supplements, with checking your blood work and just really keeping in tune with what's going on with your body so that, you can stay healthy and do this year after year after year and really minimize or hopefully alleviate any kind of long-term consequences to it. So I just, it's always very impressive, and kudos to you for, having a platform where you can say, that there's a safer way. It doesn't have to be freaking wild, wild west and just like people doing crazy things with no idea what they're doing, that there is more appropriate ways to do it and handle it and, try to accomplish your goals without, killing yourself or really hurting yourself, young.
Thanks so much, man. That means a lot, truly. I've always forget to say this in the episodes because I feel like it's just given, like all my episodes should be listened to with the understanding that we already try to do it. But all these things I think are still secondary to like lifestyle, like your diet, doing cardio. I think cardio has been one of the biggest things to help me with all my health markers related to my heart as well. As unfortunate as it is, because cardio sucks, but damn, it helps a lot. I think that's about it. But yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast, man. That was really cool.
Yeah, it's great talking to you. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
So yeah, guys, that was Dr. Richard Veyna, and a lot of these medications and things that I take, like the glutathione and stuff, is from Transcend, and then the other supplements like the NAC and TECA and stuff I get from Huge. Just personally, you guys can probably get it from a variety of different sources, but this is just where I personally go to, especially since Transcend has been so bodybuilding friendly and they're not judgmental in any way towards bodybuilders like a majority of is. So appreciate you for helping me out and everything, man.
Yeah, sure,
truly,
man. Like I said, it's a pleasure.
That's it, guys. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can by rating us a 5-star on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you find a podcast, and subscribing to the YouTube channel, because that's what get us sick, fucking awesome guests like Dr. Veyna today. So I mean, I feel like as transparent as I could get about the stuff I've done, about my entire prep, and about literally what's happening in my body right now. So I just hope you guys enjoyed that, and I don't know if that offered any value whatsoever, or if I was just this fucking dude that's talking about his drug use. So maybe I'm just a dude talking about his drug use, but love you guys. Thanks for coming on the podcast, always, for listening. This is my favorite platform. You guys are fucking awesome, and I love seeing y'all's comments. I always read through them, and they're always very supportive, and it just keeps me going. So that's about it. You guys like support the podcast, the ratings, Code Nyle for Young Lane Huge Supplements. That's about everything, bro. And if you guys are interested in seeing anything else or any other kind of podcasts, seeing any other type of like blood work analysis or me talking to other types of doctors or whatever, you know, shoot me a recommendation, shoot me a comment, and I'll fucking do it. I love you guys. Peace. Woo! I'm tired and I'm gonna go eat food. It's time for meal 4. Yeah. Oh, I'm fucking hungry. Work, baby.